Welcome to the City of Newport special meeting of the Board of Commissioners, November 3rd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Notice to the public: for special meetings, the board must adhere to the published agenda and is not at liberty to discuss other topics. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Redwanski.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith-Morrow.
Here.
Commissioner Recton.
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Sutherland. Here. Mayor Kaduli.
Here, new business, Commissioner's Order number 76.
An order of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, authorizing and directing Mayor Thomas L. Kaduli Jr. to execute a shoring rental proposal with LRT Restoration Technologies regarding monthly inspection and tower rental for an emergency shoring tower for the Purple People Bridge.
So moved.
Second.
Brian?
Mayor, this is nothing new. This is shoring that was put up last year by the Purple People Bridge Company. We've since inherited that shoring expense while we seek out permanent repairs for the bridge. So this is just formalizing that agreement with LRT to continue on with that shoring, stabilizing the bridge on the Cincinnati side.
And for the board's edification and the public as well, it's approximately a $500,000 permanent fix. We've got outside, without looking at city resources, we've got approximately $200,000 right now that we can use toward that. We're going to have some conversations later this week where there's a possibility that we could raise a little bit more money. So the goal would be for us to get rid of these towers as soon as humanly possible. However, it's not going to happen this month, clearly. So we've got to, put this into place. But this is the same exact contract. Questions that you might get about this. It would be it wouldn't be prudent to go out and try to find other bids for this same type of work because it's already there. The breakdown cost, the build up, all that type of stuff would dwarf the kind of money. Especially, and we're hopeful that we can eliminate these towers within the next, I'd say, 4 or 5 months.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, John. Any questions on the board? Any from the public? Well, I think it's important that we get rid of this sunk cost as soon as possible. Every month, it's a sunk cost, and I know that we're working towards the fundraising and look forward to getting that permanent fix done. So, Tiffany, please call the roll.
Commissioner Redwanski.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith-Morrow.
Yes.
Commissioner Recton.
Yes.
Commissioner Sutherland.
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. Commissioner's Order number 77.
An order of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, authorizing and directing Mayor Thomas L. Kaduli Jr. to execute an interlocal agreement between the cities of Newport, Dayton, Southgate, and Woodlawn, and the Campbell County Fiscal Court for Animal Control Services.
Second.
Mayor, this relates to, we've always used Campbell County's animal shelter, since it's been around. They are now, they have some guidelines and some documents that they want the cities to approve. It doesn't cost us any money. This is just something that they've changed, so that's why it's in front of you. Chief Fangman has been working with Kim Sayre and some others over at Campbell County, and he can fill you in on that.
Yes, they've updated their policies to what city manager was mentioning, and we wanted to not only with your all's approval to go into the agreement, but that'll be my job to ensure that our animal control is crossing T's and dotting I's and taking care of all of our animals to our best ability.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions on the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Smith-Morrow.
Yes.
Commissioner Recton.
Yes.
Commissioner Sutherland. Yes. Commissioner Redwanski.
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes, and that concludes our business of the special meeting, and I am in search of my favorite motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Recton.
Yes.
Commissioner Sutherland. Yes. Commissioner Redwanski.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith-Morrow.
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes, but that does not conclude this evening's agenda. We have a caucus meeting ahead of us, which we're going to go right into at this time. And the purpose of this caucus meeting is the discussion of a financial department to the board, focusing on transparency, financial policies and procedures, audit readiness, and the first quarter financial report. This discussion aims to reinforce the city's commitment to strong fiscal management, accountability, and ongoing improvement of internal practices.
Mayor, this is something not done because of any recent events, but something that we've been wanting to do some time is to have our departments heads come in periodically through caucus meetings and talk about what they do, their roles, how these departments work. Part of the commitment that we have and the board has as well to transparency of how things happen. So we thought it would be fitting to start with the finance department. There's always lots of questions there. The city brings in a lot of money and we spend a lot of money. And so I think it behooves the public to understand how that money gets spent, what those processes are, and so forth. We do have one of our auditors here tonight who's going to do a brief presentation, so I'll allow him to speak first so he can get out of here, and then Lenny will give the bulk of the presentation on finance.
Actually, not an auditor, but the investment advisor with Red Tree Investments. This is Joe Voiland, if I pronounced that right.
Almost got it. Every time.
Every time.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you for having me this evening. I actually do have paper copies. Some of the numbers on there are a little outdated, so if you don't mind, I'll just hand those out real quick. And I can go ahead and get started on the presentation. So I'm Joe Voiland with Red Tree Investment Group. We serve as an investment advisor for public entities. We work a lot in Ohio. We do work in Kentucky and a few other states as well. But this is all that we do. Our sole and only focus is working with public entities. We manage about $10 billion in public funds. And we have about 350 or so public entity clients. By the way, if there are any questions throughout this, please stop me and go ahead and ask. We officially started working with the City of Newport back in July of 2024. I'm on page 2 now. And we were brought in to work on some of the operating dollars here at the city. So as you mentioned, taxpayer dollars come into the city, but you might not spend them right away. So there's state law that dictates what you can do with those funds. And that's where we come into play, is to help advise the city and manage a portfolio on behalf of the city to have taxpayer dollars work for the taxpayers. Originally, we were working on some operating dollars, so that would include like some reserve funds and so on, as well as some of the parking garage funds and some old debt issues. We started working on some of those assets as well. I think a really important point to note here is while we serve as the investment advisor, we actually do not hold any of the city's funds. Those are held by what's called a third-party custodian. That role is served by U.S. Bank. So it is the city's investment account. Every investment that is made is held in the city's name. We are simply allowed to buy and sell investments within that account. So you do have that degree of separation. The only ones who can access those funds are authorized signers on the account. So that would be Lenny. As well, an important point there is we set up what's called standing wire instructions on all of our accounts. So money that moves back and forth between U.S. Bank and the city's main depository can only go to those 1 or 2 accounts. So anybody coming in trying to request money and sending it somewhere else will be an immediate red flag. We just like to make that point because we know everything going on in today's world, that the funds, there's a lot of safeguards in place for these dollars. If you move on to page 3, this is the permitted investment list for Kentucky political subdivisions. There's a specific state statute that is followed. It's KRS 66480. It is a long read. It is attorney jargon. But so we try to do here is put it in the simplest form, is what you're allowed to do with these taxpayer dollars. This is your foundation to building an investment program for the city. As well, the city does have an investment policy. Lenny and I worked together on this for a good amount of time, because that is also the guiding document that says, here's our investment program, here are the rules that we're going to follow, and here's how we're going to do it and report on that. So the next two pieces are just a real quick update about what's going on in the economy and interest rates. I'll be really, really high level here. But the reason why I do this is to give you an idea when we get to look at the investment portfolios and how they're positioned, is to say, how did we get there? So three really key economic drivers that we look at are US GDP, so how is the US economy producing? What's the job landscape like? How many folks are employed and what's the outlook there? And then the inflation front. A lot of these drivers are going to dictate short-term interest rates, which is what you all ultimately invest in. This is all fixed income, so it's a lot of it is going to be driven by Federal Reserve rate decisions, because those rates then dictate the other rates that you all get to purchase. On the U.S. growth front, we started out 2025 a little bit on a mediocre note, but have since turned around in the second and third quarter. The U.S. is now on par for just shy of 4% growth year over year, which is actually pretty astounding for an advanced Western economy. The question is, how long does that last, right? And so some of the leading indicators that we're getting are telling maybe a little bit more of a grimmer story ahead, is that the economy is just going to slow down. I think we can see it all around us as well. The job market, two pieces there we talk about is what's the latest unemployment rate, 4.3%. What does that mean? In terms of what the Federal Reserve looks at to adjust their rate, they do consider that full employment. That's one piece. The other piece is new job growth, which has been on quite a decline throughout 2025. What does that mean? That means that the companies are no longer hiring at a pace that they were or creating jobs. It's now flattened, or you're starting to see headlines where some actually pretty major companies are cutting back a decent amount of their workforce. So that is, again, a leading indicator to say maybe we're heading on a slower growth path. The inflation front is the tricky part, right? So over the last few years, we've had quite high inflation. We've reached as high as 9% in 2022. There's many different inflation measures. One that's often followed and talked about in the news is called CPI. That measures around 3%. What does that mean? The Federal Reserve's goal for inflation or stable prices is 2% year over year. We've been above that now for more than 3 years. So the question is, what is it going to take to get back to 2%? This is where the long game starts. It's not going to happen overnight. We've seen that, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So right now, what's happening, if you turn to the next page, is interest rates. There's kind of a tug of war between inflation and jobs, which are two key mandates for the Federal Reserve. As you can see on the blue lines, as of 7/31/24, I know that's not right there, but on your page in front of you, commissioners, is we're in a higher interest rate environment in the summer of last year. And that's actually the investment environment that we started putting funds to work for the city, which is great, as you'll see on the next coming pages. Not so great maybe if you just have that as your point where you say, okay, I'm going to judge performance off of that, is, well, rates have just declined. The economy has slowed down a little bit. The job market has weakened, so the Federal Reserve has adjusted rates downward from 5% now to about 4%. And so that's kind of what's on the page in front of you is as those rates adjust, the market is forward-looking. It says, hey, we need further easement from the Federal Reserve. Therefore, you get lower interest rates. So as we go and invest some of these dollars, now we're going from a higher interest rate environment to a lower interest rate environment, but we'll tell you why we did what we did. There's probably one more cut from the Federal Reserve coming. Their last meeting this year is in December. That'll bring their rate to just below 4%. So the next 3 pages, we actually manage 3 separate funds. This first one is called the Reserve Fund. It's probably a little bit of a misnomer at this point because it's not just the reserve dollars of the city. There are other operating dollars that are in this portfolio. So we manage just under $10.5 million here. The average yield on the portfolio, so your return is just over 4%. The weighted average maturity, so if you were to combine all the individual investments into just one, that average maturity is about 2 years long. In the policy, it's written that you cannot go more than 5 years in maturity. It's actually not in KRS 66480 or it's in the GFOA best practice policy, and it's what we generally use when we advise clients on putting one in place. That helps restrict risk. So going further just creates creates more risk. We anticipate earning about $350,000 on these funds. I'll say asterisk on that. I said these are operating dollars, so some of these funds will be coming back to the city to pay some other bills. So at this time, if nothing were to change, that would be the number that we would anticipate. Some highlights here on the portfolio. When we first started working together, we were actually invested well above 4%, but as I said, interest rates have come down. So as investments come due, we then reinvest in that interest rate market. Where we did invest in 2025 so far is about 4.35%. Again, our goal here is to lock in these higher interest rates for a longer period of time. If you didn't do this, some other options that were available would be you all work with Truist Bank. They do pay an interest rate on those accounts, but it's very minimal. It's just above 1%. So you're almost quadruple here by looking at a long-term view, looking at cash flows, and deciding, hey, we can lock in some of these funds for a period of time, so we know we're not going to need them. So let's lock in that immediate return that we will see for the years to come. As far as asset allocation, we don't use everything that's allowable. We because of certain investment strategies and risk parameters, we set in place. These are basically the highest quality investments that are available to you via the policy and KRS 66480. Any questions there? The next two ones are pretty easy. These are the 2024 debt proceeds. There's a little over $4 million left in this account. This was from the bond issue last year, about $17 million for the garage project, and we've earned well over 4% on this project. It is coming to an end here soon, so we just anticipate a little bit more in interest earnings on this account. In total, it's been to date almost $400,000 in interest earnings. So instead of just letting it sit in an account, we went and looked against the draw schedule and said, hey, we can lock in this rate for 6 months, this rate for 9 months against the draw schedule so that you guys had the funds back to pay your bills. Meanwhile, you're going to earn about $500,000 on these funds to put forth to either this project or other projects in the city. And then the last one here, this again is an older debt issue from the 2021 project funds. A little over 12 million here. This one is a little bit different. There were some legal restrictions and parameters because the funds have been, they've been around for just a little bit. So the federal government comes in and says, hey, you can only do this and that now. And so there's a specific investment here. It's called a state and local government security. We just call it a slug for short. But it's a daily rate given directly by, it's a direct investment with the U.S. Treasury. What it does is if you were to leave the funds just idle in the account, in the money market account, basically at this point the IRS says any money you earn, you now have to give back to the IRS. But there are laws that you can use that say, okay, well, actually, if we put it in this type of security, we can keep all of that interest. So that's what we did. The market rate is a little bit lower. So like right now, you can get 3.5%, 4%. This is about 3%. But it's a heck of a lot better than building a liability to send back to the government. So in this account, retained earnings so far were $420,000 that you would have to written a check back to the IRS that you get to keep. The taxpayers get to keep.
By being strategic.
By being strategic. Yeah, this stuff, it can get complicated pretty quickly. This one is not even on that list that I put there because it's such a rare use. But we do use it, especially in the interest rate environment that we've had over the past few years. This is a way for you all to keep interest that you're actually earning. That's it in a nutshell. I know it's a lot of information all at once. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Joe. On the board, any questions?
Joe, what are the products in the commercial paper?
Commercial paper?
Yeah, what products?
We typically use U.S. banks, so that would be like J.P. Morgan,
Okay.
Citibank, The banking industry is a major issuer of this. You can see some corporate issuers like a Walt Disney or a Coca-Cola. Those are pretty rare. A lot of banking institutions use that product.
Anyone else? Julie?
With possibility of a downturn in the economy, would you change the asset allocation at all?
So what we have been doing is, and I've been having conversations with Lenny about this, is, there's a project going to be going on at the James Taylor Park, and some of those funds are invested here. So that's going to be a major liquidity event, is saying, okay, where are those funds going to come from? And so talking strategically about that, we're also keeping in mind that we are in a declining interest rate environment. So we're trying to maximize the dollars where we can. So to answer the question in short is, absolutely, we're trying to continue to invest a little bit longer on the yield curve so that you can lock in a higher rate for a longer period of time. But it just depends on cash flows here at the city about where those might come from.
Balancing act.
It is a balancing
Yeah.
act, absolutely.
Yeah, art and science.
But related, we have a lot of money in money market accounts, which is highly liquid as well.
Yes, actually, the way that this portfolio is invested, just because it's invested in a certain investment does not mean that it's not liquid. In fact, pretty much everything in the portfolios we could sell at or above where the city purchased that investment because, as I said, interest rates have declined. So the older investment that you purchased back here at 4.5% and 5% is now more valuable.
Anyone else on the board?
Yeah, can you talk about this? There's a footnote here.
Yep.
Amount of funds the city invests at any time in one or more of these categories listed above shall not exceed 20% of the total funds invested.
Yep, that's the legislators here in Kentucky saying, hey, we're allowing you to take a little additional risk, so that being commercial paper and corporate bonds, but in doing so, we're gonna limit how much you can own. So that's what that says. So 20% of the funds cannot be, those two asset classes combined cannot be more than 20% of the funds for the city of Newport.
Anyone in the public? Seeing none. Joe, thanks so much. It's been a journey to get here, and it's good to finally get a report. We've been working on this for many years.
Yes.
And from the long-term history of the city, we were paying interest through something called tax anticipation notes for a very long time. And to actually have a rainy day fund, reserve funds, and the ability to actually invest money, being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar is a great thing, and your team has been helpful in that, so thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you all.
Thank you.
Here we have, Lenny is gonna present on, finance department in general. So, what we're looking to, the reason why that we're here and we're discussing this is, the objective is to demonstrate our strong internal control structure and showing our commitments to transparency, accuracy, and proactive fiscal management. So when it comes to internal controls, which is so important, not just here, but in every organization, we've got policies, procedures, instructions and structures that ensure accurate financial reporting, safeguarding the assets, legal compliance, and operational efficiency. So what we're trying to do is detect the errors, prevent fraud, and maintain public trust. So I know that with the caucus, as the board is aware, we're limited to an hour, so we don't have a ton of time. So I will let Lenny kind of get into this. There's 5 big controls here: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring. And so Lenny will show you what those things are. There's also some supplemental documents that Brian sent out to the board as well that Lenny may refer to some of these things, but not all. We will also put this presentation, and the relevant documentation will go on our website as well, so the people at home can look at this at their leisure. So, Lenny?
Thank you, John. Lenny, go ahead.
All right, hello. I could talk for a long time about this. Our time is limited, so I might move a little faster. I won't read everything that may be up there, but one of the previous slides that you may have seen is why are we here? And Brian, I think there's one marked number 3. One I sent you on.
Oh, you mean the other, okay.
Or you have 2 presentations kind of marked together, so I'd made some notes. Oh, is there just like a PDF marked number 3?
Oh, I can find them, so, that's all right. We'll get it moved.
This one, who watches? It's got the other cities kind of listed. Yeah, number 3, other cities. Who watches The Watchmen? So try to bring a comic book reference if I can. What we have up here is my 10 years being in government finance, what's happened in some other cities. Bowling Green, 4.3 million embezzled over a period of time. Florence, a little more well-known, and then Covington. The old adage, money does funny things to people, and we have a lot to invest now, and there is a lot in our trial balance, and I can go over that later if we have time. What our assets comprise that trial balance, and making sure that we have good custody of that. So if you flip back to the sorry, this is a little disjointed here. This is the next one. What are the internal controls? Okay, so internal controls are basically the policies and procedures set in place by an organization to ensure accurate financial reporting, safeguarding of the assets, legal compliance, and operational efficiency. The next is the components. Again, I'm going to get to more of the common stuff that we work on. But you can see these are the 5 that are kind of generally well known that they teach you in college. Walking through those items. So real quick, what in regards to protecting the city assets and what we're keeping control over, I'm going to just show you guys a quick snapshot of our trial balance. I don't want to get too hung up in all the numbers. This is as of fiscal year 25. The auditors are here today. They've just started the audit, so these are preliminary figures. Should be number 4, Brian. Okay, I know it's kind of hard to see. I will give copies to you guys. The first little square is just, that's just cash on hand that we keep in drawers. It's very minimal. We have bank accounts with about 9.5 million. We have investment accounts, which Joe just spoke about, which is the 10.5 million. We have 120,000 in receivables for unpaid tax bills. The 7 million involves, most of that are revenues that are due by June, but are received after June 30th. So a lot of it's received in July, and we book those into the following year. And miscellaneous invoicing is 255,000. These are invoices that we, for services that we would invoice for. The majority of that 255 are code liens. So all in all, the city's sitting with, at the end of fiscal year 25, about $27.5 million in assets. Key, and back to the other one, Brian, the keys, Newport's key safeguards. This is kind of a list. This is more what I'd rather get into speaking about. We have 19 bank accounts. And one of the first things I do every day is I open those up and I look at those and see what's happened. Money's in, money's out. Another thing that's very necessary on those 19 bank accounts is they are reconciled on a monthly basis. So,
Mind being interrupted? You look at the bank accounts personally?
yes.
Okay, and the reconciliations are done by?
So Matt or myself, we download the bank statements from the bank. Those are given to the staff accountant. The staff accountant then takes that bank statement and he builds the bank reconciliation. So there's backup documentation for items that have either come in or gone out and matches that up to the ledger and brings those two things into balance. Then there's deposits in transit, transfers in transit. Once that's done, he completes that, he signs off on it. It goes to the finance officer for review. Matt does a really big deep dive into it and just double checks, make sure journal entries are, we have the right time period, details are in there, and then it comes to me and I sign off as a final review.
We have more than one person that's doing this process every day, more or less. We have a person who's pulling it and then a person who's signing off on it, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Brian, if you could pull up number 6 for a second. Putting Brian to work today. All right, so this is an example of one of our bank recs. This is for the legal checkbook. We only keep $2,500 in there, so Dan and Billy can't run off with too much. But down at the bottom where the highlight is, staff accountant, finance officer will sign off on those, and those get filed away. And just make sure we have oversight on all that. As far as speaking about the bank accounts and cash coming in, the city, we have mail come in, we have customers that come in at the front, we have cash, checks, money order. We also take credit card at the front. It's primarily, we have 2 accounts receivable specialists. They put most of the payments in to our accounting software, and then they pull what's called a batch, their batch for the day, their drawer, so to speak. Then somebody else in the department has to write up their deposit slip, kind of looks over it and just gives it the once over. We have 2 smaller areas where we take cash in the city, but they're low risk. One's the pool, and then the police department also has an area where they take cash, credit card, and money order and all that. One of the recent developments is we got a check scanner, so if we don't have much cash, we don't have to make as many trips to the bank, and we can just deposit, run them through the scanner and deposit those directly. And meter coin are bagged up in a specific secure way and taken directly to the bank for vaulting services. Probably about 5 years ago, the bank came to us and they said, they're trying to sell some more services to the city, and it's just like, okay, well, what's this going to cost? But we ended up taking advantage of it. Somebody, one of their clients in West Virginia had a $40,000 check washed and that money taken. So we decided to institute 3 services from the bank and across various accounts. One of them is check block. There's certain accounts we're never going to write a check out of. And basically what we do is we move money internally. We really only have one checking account. So if the garbage fund is writing a check, or if the TIF fund's ready, we'll move that into the checking account. So not all of our accounts literally have a check tied to it. So there's check block, there's ACH control. For instance, we can allow people to debit directly from our account. The parking meters, IPS, they deposit money every day into our account, and we wanted to see that. We wanted it rec'd out on a monthly basis. So once a month, they'll pull their fee out of that, and we can restrict that by the frequency and the amount that can come out at any given time.
Could you explain the check washing, how that protects us?
Yes, I got a very good example of this. So I watched this one day on television. Somebody they showed how it works. They took a check, they cut open like a Coca-Cola bottle, like a 12-ounce, 16-ounce bottle, filled it with a certain type detergent, put the check in, and just rolled it back and forth until that ink came off. So they had the pertinent information on that and could go back in and fill what it is. So our process is called positive pay. So when Missy cuts the checks, I get a report that says, okay, here's the amount that we have going out today. Springbrook, I have a kick out a report, and it's in a format that can be uploaded into Truist. So I give it the check number, the check date, who we're paying, and what the amount is. All of those have to match, or the check will not go through. There's been times where I forgot to upload it, and we'll get notified the next morning, like, hey, so we can go in and get that done. It's very timely too. We'd cut a check, and I usually do this at the end of the day. Somebody wanted their check right away. They ran to the bank, and we got a notification, so I uploaded that file. Brian, if you could, number 5. So we had a vendor down in Florida, and this check shows up in it gets flagged by the positive pay. I highlighted in green what's been changed. So ours prints. Well, when we print a payee on it, it's a printed thing. You can see they've gone in and put a name where they could write it in. One of the main keys is that check number was way too high. Like we weren't even close to that check. And hey, I guess I'm kind of flattered. Somebody tried to forge my name. But this is, and when we called, we found out the check that had been taken, and they were having multiple issues with this. So I don't know how secure their mail, or if they had somebody that was getting into the mail and payments, but there was multiple occasions of this. They tried to hit us like 5 different times. It was caught every single time. I have copies of
So
all
this
of
was a check that was washed?
Yes.
Wow.
Washed or maybe modified. It may have been taken and rescanned and maybe tried to reconstruct it since they had our routing number and account number. But I call it washed because it's still, it's very similar, but there's, like they added the City of Newport section, and the lines where the payee, we don't have those lines, and they had washed.
But paying for that service, we were alerted and we were able to deal with that immediately.
Yes. Yeah, and we have a special printer that does Micker ink, so I don't know how much about the dark side of it. But it's a shining example of, I mean, it's and especially today, it's constant. And so those services, they've more than paid for themselves.
So Lenny, then, every day you send to the bank a list with the bank check numbers and the amounts and the payees,
Yeah, we do
Right.
about 2 check runs a week, so
whenever you do it,
Yes.
whenever. And so then anything that clears, they're checking it against that.
yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we don't
Yeah.
really hear much about it. I mean, they're far and few between. The ones we hear from most are like when an HRA, even the HRA account has it, sometimes that might get past us, but we can go in and approve it and,
Yeah.
and go on. And we just, ACH control as well. They'll let us know, can we approve it? Like for instance, getting the garage set up. They're now doing testing of making sure those credit cards are going to be able to come through. So they sent like a little fee tester, and we didn't have them set up on our system. So it was caught, and then we approved it, and then we can go in and approve that business code for a certain amount of
Right.
money. So
Right. Do we have one assigned person at the bank that's doing that for us?
I think this is just in the system, just
It's in the
generally
system.
through
That's amazing.
just
Yeah.
within the computer
Mhm.
networks of the,
Probably AI.
yeah.
What do we do in the instances of counterfeit bills? Do we have any history with that or any types of countermeasures?
Yeah, we are looking into a machine. It's, there's, come tax time, there's a lot of checks or cash coming through. So looking for suspicious bills. We do have markers up at the front.
Nice.
However, it's amazing how many people are, come in here and pay a bill with.
Paying cash.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
so I haven't looked at them yet. I had Paula get me the machines that they have down at the Truist Bank.
Okay.
And how they'll kick out bills rather than having people check each one with a marker. Maybe we just check the ones that they kick out, because it's kicked out doesn't mean it's a bad bill, but it needs extra scrutiny. So we are looking into maybe getting that for the future. They have 2 models down there, so we're going to look at the pricing on that.
The other instance of fraud I've seen, I was sitting through a CLE a couple of years ago, and the question I thought he was going to ask, fraudulent bills as in an invoice that someone sends us that looks legit, that turns out it's not. Have we come across that at all?
No, I'll touch a little bit more on that on payables, but we haven't. Pretty much we're decentralized with purchasing, so each department receives their invoices and they put those into the system, and that kind of helps, rather than having centralized purchasing. When it's decentralized, chief knows what's going on in his department. The chiefs, they've got a pretty tight control. So if something tried to hit their budget and they didn't want it, they'd
Hopefully they'll
Yeah.
notice it.
Yeah.
The instance that I saw, it was like a legit, it looked like a vendor, like let's say a fire department, it's the same name and everything. But it's being directed to a different payee or whatever,
Okay.
So it looks like a real invoice from a real vendor that we actually use, but where you're wiring the money is not the right place.
Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately we're not really doing many ACH payments for debt service and things. We are, but AP accounts payable, we are hopefully going to go to some of that soon because more and more vendors are requesting that, but we're not quite there. Springbrook is set up to accommodate that. We just haven't done that yet. John, did I answer the? Okay. Also within those bank accounts, as far as signing checks, we have 4 signers in the city. Any check over $10,000 we have 2 people sign off on it. From climbing mountains with Dan, sometimes we're down to less signers on the in the building than normal. ACH and wire transfers for like debt service. Right now, only the 3 accountants kind of have the authority to do that. So like U.S. Bank, they like, or like when we pay our 941s or like the SIRS, those are ACH payments, and those are restricted just between the 3 accountants can make those transactions happen.
Can I ask you a question about that? So could you just on your own do that without anybody checking? It only requires one signature, is that right?
Yeah, in theory, I could move that until they ended up with the bank rec. Nobody would probably know per se. Now you've tempted me. No, just kidding.
No, that was the other thing that they brought up. There was this was put on by an FBI special agent, and they were explaining how this person did this. And one of the things was they were basically it was a finance director who was doing it, and they were basically getting the check approved, but then they were basically putting like a sticky, writing over what was originally approved on the check, and then changing it and depositing it into their own account. So, but she was the only person who signed the check. She was the only person checking it. So that's obviously something that.
Yeah. There is, we don't have it set up yet, but there is a way to set up, or at least I need to check with Truist. Anytime a money's moved out from Truist to an outside account, that an email notification could go on. I think it might have been Bank of Kentucky had that feature, so any of us, we would all be notified. I think that feature got lost with BB&T and now in Truist. That might be something we can have activated, and that would be money going to an outside institution.
To Commissioner Sutherland's point, if somebody was a bad actor doing that, at the end of the month, it's going to get caught as you do the reconciliation, correct?
Yeah, correct. Also, okay, so we have the 19 bank accounts. We also have 15 accounts. You can just probably stay on the safeguard. Yeah. We have 15 accounts that are investment accounts. That's pretty much what Joe was talking about. Some of those are tied up with the Reserve Operation Fund. And we have the garage account and then the Series 2021, which we are working on those monies. That we're supposed to give a comprehensive plan as far as these projects are all coming to fruition now, what we have available for that. The other ones, we have 4 accounts for the legacy pension funds. I think we're down to like 20 pensioners on that fund. And those are reconciled monthly. We don't really do a formal bank rec on that because those are just pretty much
Fixed.
Yeah, it's pretty much fixed activity. But they are looked at by two of 3 of the accountants once a month.
I don't mean to derail you, but I'm kind of watching time here to make sure you got time to answer this. When a city has a instance and we see that in the paper, or you had a few different examples up there earlier. I won't name them by name, but what are our processes that we take and then we learn from that experience to make our internal types of mechanisms stronger as a result of which?
Well, what transpired in those instances? So 2 of those were insurance premium tax related, because that's a hard revenue. It's in flux. You can't really necessarily predict it year to year. Things that have been put in place since then is all those insurance companies have to report to the Department of Insurance. So when the audit comes, we go to the Department of Insurance, we download Newport, Kentucky's, what's been reported to the state, and we match that to what we've actually received. That's one of the first things the auditors want to look at. So that's been moved up on their priority list. Okay. Actually helped us catch one time one of our clerks put a payment in the wrong year, and it was caught. We saw the revenue, and it was in the right revenue line. But in that report, it helped us because we were behind on a year, and it helped follow up and get the missing year that had that's why it got filled into a back year, as we were missing a payment from a previous year. So it's a good report to do that. The other one was it was kind of like in one of those IPTs, the bank had inadvertently, it didn't seem to be purposeful, but the bank account was set up in a way that the finance director could deposit funds into it and have access to those personally. So bank controls also need to be tightened up. The third one was one of the softwares, there was a loophole where they could go in and change the vendor after the fact. So the check was made out to so-and-so, and then they could go in and change that. So when a history was run, it looked like it was cut somewhere else.
Well, I think that does a nice job to demonstrate that when we have folks on staff in general that have a long term of experience with us, that it really helps us ensure that we have the continuity of these types of services and that those best practices are maintained.
How much time do I have?
About 20 minutes.
Okay. Accounts receivable and accounts and payable controls. Okay, so before you saw, we had about 120,000 in tax bills. So what creates, what we have are the receivables on the books. And what we don't want are people writing off those receivables like, oh, Lenny's tax bill is now 0. So those receivables are created a couple different ways. When we download from the county, in that process, it will create the tax bills in our receivable system. And then, like I said, with code liens and things like that, legal fees, grass cuts, things of that nature, those are provided to Paula, or the accounts receivable specialist, and she will create those invoices and send those out. Once a month, so it's kind of occurring in our collection system. And then we have Springbrook as our ledger. So those things are not directly connected, so that we have to line those up once a month, and that's a way to help us monitor that. So the only way an account receivable can be adjusted is it needs to be either written off or adjusted. Those are two different processes we have. So the staff accountant runs a report, grabs all those occurrences where it was either written off or adjusted, and there's backup to each one of those. Like right now, there's a lot of people that don't file their disability with the PVA. So we send out the tax bills, and now they need that bill adjusted. So so all those backup, we have all those erroneous assessments by the PVA to back up those changes. October is the biggest month for this. So those have to be reviewed, and anything looks suspicious, it gets reported.
You may or may not know this, but is that something that process is unique to Newport, or is that something that's pretty standard throughout different cities in the Commonwealth?
Even as far as like tying those two together?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. We do want to move our collection system. Online payment is like, I'm sure you guys hear about it. Like, why don't you guys have online payment?
Sure. Yep.
We're looking at it. We looked at Springbrook's collection system, and I don't think it fit our needs, and naturally we have Springbrook. The other modules are great, but for what we needed, the collection system, so it would maybe be more automatic. Okay. I like in KVS, it's COBOL, it looks antiquated, but it's like one of those old cars, man. It runs, and it's solid, and it's dependable. Like
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It is, but yeah, there's a couple of things where there's some monthly tie-up. So I kind of like the process as well. If it was per occurrence, I mean, you could have 300 occurrences. It might be clutter the ledger with a lot of entries or something like that. Also, there are there's an audit trail kind of within the software as well, so we can see who did what. And then we have, I guess I could also say this is, we have control of the passwords within our financial software. So even system support doesn't have that. They make sure that we can have access to that, and we control the various systems. Matt and I do. Currently, what had happened in the past, and we're looking into, and should be done, is once staff is kind of duties have been laid out, somebody outside finance will kind of control the Springbrook gateway. So like right now I can't cut checks, but I could give myself the ability to cut checks. So that should be really something we may want to have controlled outside the department. It had been done before. I think Larissa had it, and then Lauren had it at another time. Currently I do have that ability until we kind of get settled with all the new staffing and the distribution and segregation of duties. Accounts payable, like I kind of said before with the checks, each department, they have dedicated people who put those invoices into the software. There's an approval process. They have somebody that inputs it, somebody that approves it. If it's over 10,000, it goes to John, and John looks at it and can approve it. Then it makes its way to finance, and then we have the physical invoice, and we match that against what's been put in the system, because sometimes there's some clues that may be missed. Somebody in one department may not know, like, oh, that needs to come out of this, out of confiscation. So there's a little thing where we have to tag it with a different cash code. So finance is seeing those as well. Matt, actually, I almost skipped over Matt. Matt gets a once-over on it, because sometimes, oh, yeah, normally it comes out of this line item, but this is a special project. It needs to come out of this line item. So there's
I believe the statute, they just increased that, right? To where the CM can approve it without it going to the board? State statute?
It's mainly like the bidding process. So we went from 20 to 30 to 40 is just the number of, looking for the number of bids and items we need for, but that's kind of like the internal policy with us, is we've set it up that way.
Appreciate the clarification.
So, yeah, so Springbrook, it's got a workflow manager in there, so you can control who goes where, if somebody clicks they're out of office, there's usually a backup approver.
Okay.
For those things.
Commissioner, to your point, I know that there's been some city managers, administrators around the state who have lobbied the government to raise that $40,000 number up higher, and to me, it doesn't make sense, because I think I think one of the things that prevents fraud, I think the big dollar numbers, is having approvals through you guys when it gets to a certain number. So to me, 40,000 makes sense for a lot of reasons, but getting way higher than that, as a lot of other my colleagues have advocated for, I wouldn't support that. We wouldn't do it that way here anyway, even if we had the ability. I think it just makes more transparent sense to be in front of you guys for that.
Yeah, agreed. The intent is to be transparent on all fronts. When it's red, everyone's aware of it. There are no questions.
Absolutely.
Matt and I can create vendors. Missy cannot. She's cutting the checks. She has no authority to create a vendor. Matt and I can create the vendor. She can cut the checks. We can't cut checks. So there's a balance there with the system. One of the things the auditors have us do is called a monthly checkbook. So there's a monthly report run of all the checks cut within that month. Kind of like similar thing that we talked about with the file, except it will have a description of what it is. And that gets sent to Mr. Richardson for review. He's been designated as the reviewer, so it's nice, and the auditors want to see that. They want to see what questions were asked, so it's always kind of like good insight. One of my favorite stories about this in the past is former Mayor Peluso had seen the checkbook. He's like, what are we writing a check to this jewelry store for, like $800? And I'm like, oh, well, let me look into that, because this report back then didn't have the description. It was a refund on an occupational license. They had amended their return. It was like, but the system works. It's a good question. Why is the city?
No diamonds?
The newest thing that we learned is just from the Northern Kentucky Government Finance Officers Association meeting is they had a gentleman that used to work with the IRS there speaking, and we didn't have this in the past. When we send out 1099s at the end of the year, we do get some back, and the IRS says these don't match. So is there somebody fraudulently, like, not giving us the correct information, trying to avoid tax? You can go to IRS, it's called IRS 10 matching, TIN, tax identification number. So we get a W-9 from somebody, and it's like, we can match that against the system, and the IRS doesn't give you details, it just says yes or no. So it could be, Ken Recton LLC, this is a number, like, nope. So you can always go back out to that person and say, hey, your W-9's not matching. Is this are you a DBA, or how should we be looking into that? But it kind of helps control that. All right, payroll integrity. Okay, so within Springbrook, HR is they are the folks that put, like, a new employee comes on board, they set them up with their deductions, their pay scale, their benefits, their accruals, their off time, and all those various aspects. if there's changes throughout the year, they change health plans, they take care of all that. We kind of watch that once, we do kind of have somebody following through and double checking some of those things. We can view those, like for instance, police and fire, they have that extra modifier on their overtime, that kind of like clef money was so making sure that those things are set up. There's certain rate codes, so we can follow up and make sure everything's entered, especially when we change like health insurance plans. It's kind of good to have a second set of eyes on that. So every payroll, timesheets are sent to the departments, and then they review those. Then they go to HR director, who looks at them again, and then it comes to finance. So we execute the payroll, but everything else in the background, the maintenance and all that, is handled by HR. So obviously there's the fun part of paying everybody when it comes to a payroll. But if you look at your check on the right-hand side, you've got all those benefits and those deductions. Missy will then start to plug those into some sheets, as we kind of have a written up sheet to pay, deferred comp, 941, FICA, Medicare, the union dues are paid, health insurance gets paid. There's all these payroll liabilities that have to be managed. So those are written up by Missy, and then the accountants kind of review those and look over those and verify those, because those come from reports right out of the executed payroll, kind of matching those up. Lots of notes. So HR, as I said, mentions they can delete or adjust people's payroll. It's been one of those things. There's kind of like a who did it, because we have some limited access in some of that. For instance, their pay was adjusted, it wasn't the right pay, and then it would be like, we could go back and run the audit trail and say, oh, you inadvertently clicked on the wrong button and it modified this. Currently, Matt and I cannot execute a full payroll. So it's one of those things that's kind of shut off. The auditors do suggest that once a year that somebody else does run a payroll. This is how things have been caught, when somebody, might be somebody who doesn't take vacation or doesn't want to, let anybody kind of see what they're doing. We don't really have that problem, but they do like to see somebody. So we're not doing it now. We're small enough, and Missy's still fresh on board. I don't see the need to do it. We have 3 other eyes kind of watching all these other things. We're small enough. We may do it from time to time, but we're not doing it right now. One of the big payments is CSRS every month. I mean, it can be, I think our last one was like 300-something thousand. So every month, CSRS opens up around the 25th, and you can put the prior month in. Springbrook kicks out a file, what everybody's earnings are that are quantitative by CSRS, and Missy goes into a portal and loads them in one by one. We tried to upload a file, but it's just not smooth no matter what software you're with.
For the public, tell them what CSRS is.
Oh, sorry. CSRS is the County Employee Retirement System, also known as KPPA. That's the state retirement system that we're all in. So the employee pays a portion, and then the employer also pays a portion. So there's some checks in there, like when we put the earnings in, it'll calculate what the employer's portion should be, and it'll map that out. So she loads those in, and it comes up with it subtotals it. Then Matt looks at it and makes sure that it matches the ledger and some other reports and verifies it, and then he forwards it to me to be reviewed, and then it's paid. So we have 3 sets of eyes on that as well. In regards to payable, this would be number 7, Brian. We do have 17 credit cards. Those are, we kind of have low usage. I know that month, I think that was August, it was 15,000. I have some asterisks. I make notes. So what happens is Matt downloads those and hands those out. The card holders attach their receipts, bring them back to finance, and those are all hashed out. We make sure they're coded correctly. And then once Matt gets them done, he provides them to Missy to cut the one check to Truist on that for. what we instituted a couple years ago was I come in after the fact and I flip through everything, because I look at all these on a monthly basis. So I just kind of flip through each one to kind of see what was spent and see if anything jumps out at me. Like this month, there was a refrigerator that needed to be purchased in the municipal complex, kind of police department, and then Ray, he needed a life pack up there for the city garage. So those were larger items, nothing, I mean, they were well within budget. I just like to make little notes for that. And then once it's done, I sign off on it, and it's there. One of the things that kind of helped push for this was there was a city where they had a lot of credit card users, and they would come in an envelope, like we download them directly from the bank. They came in an envelope, the card user took it, scanned it into like Adobe, or I want to slash Adobe, I guess, into some sort of software and remapped it. So much to your point of what you had said about, it wasn't a literal sticker, they just typed it in. Like, so if it was, Crate and Barrel for X amount of dollars, it was now KOI or something like that. Just throwing some names out. And that went on for some time. And as is what can happen is one day somebody's not there when the mail comes in, and somebody who's covering eventually found it, and it was discovered. So just kind of wanted to let you know, credit cards are watched, and fortunately we've never had any questionable spending and anything I would have to take to the city manager and say, hey, this is looking a little odd. What we do have, and because these cards do look similar, just so people know, there have been accidental purchases on these cards. Especially, I think it was Bank of Kentucky, looked very similar if you had a Bank of Kentucky credit card. So they identify those things. Like if I used it inadvertently, it'll come on the statement to Matt, hey, personal purchase. That gets put into a balance sheet account. It doesn't hit an expense line or anything. And then the employee will either deduct it from their check or they give us a check to offset that. Very few occurrences, but it does happen. But it's.
I have a question. Would you say that all the charges are matched routinely without fail with
Yes.
receipts?
Yes.
What happens if there is a missing receipt?
So the policy for a missing receipt is the department head has to write a memo to attach with the packet, and they'll explain what the receipt was for and a reason why it's not there. I mean, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to
Of
stick it in
course.
their wallet. It's
Yeah.
going to get lost, or it's going to go in a pocket. We have it, but the department head has to write up the memo and sign off on it.
Would there ever be a reason to reject it?
I guess. I mean, I know there's been times like you see Party Source, and it's like you make sure they put balloons on there.
Yeah.
We try to get like if possible, get the itemized receipts if somebody, for travel and things like that, and not just the bulk card at the end, to make sure there's no alcohol purchased and things like that. Those would be things that I would bring to the city manager's attention. But we got a good group of staff here, so it's been.
I think when you have high expectations on that and follow through on it, then the rate of loss goes way down.
Yeah, we've got really good card users. I mean, and again, travel's pushed a lot of this. I know,
Of course.
like the captain one that's so high for the police department. That's travel. So even though the training's free down in Richmond, still have to pay for the hotel and things like that. So there's like 4 people a month at least probably going down for training.
One of the things that we've done, Commissioner, as well is, for example, the city manager's credit card may get used by various people throughout the department for purchases. So we've got a system where they have to go to my assistant, they sign the card out, the time, the purpose, all of those things, and they return it to Stan. He demands the receipt at that time. So that way, and if there's one missing, we know exactly who had it, for what purpose, and why.
Yeah, those are great internal controls. Lenny, we're getting close to the end. I think we probably got maybe 5 minutes left.
Okay.
This has been a good nuts and bolts conversation. We're really getting into the detail, and it seems like it's probably worthy of a continuation if you're not able to get through today at another time, which may include perhaps like a quarterly discussion about expenses and liabilities from a budget standpoint. But how much do you think you have left to present, and still allow a little time for questions from the board and the public?
I could go pretty quickly.
5 minutes quick, or?
Maybe.
I think you have pretty many
Yeah,
go through still,
I think, Mayor, it would behoove us to probably have a second meeting that we can finish this up. Probably wouldn't take up the whole hour, but that way we're not rushing through. I'm sure you guys have questions and some weeds that you want to get into here too, so.
And I think it would be good to have a statement of our financial position as well, and allow time for you to prepare for that and finish this up.
Yes, because what I had originally kind of sent out, I have the financials, the budgets to actuals for the whole fiscal year that's submitted to the auditor. I didn't catch quarterly when I saw the thing. But yeah, like I said, could talk for a long time on this. There are some things, how much time is there? 5 minutes
Sure.
total?
Yeah.
5 minutes total, or just 5 minutes?
did have
and then
one-
5
one-
minutes for questions.
I
No,
did have-
go ahead and use 5 minutes, and then we'll take 5 minutes for questions. I mean, we don't have to have an absolute hard deadline.
Okay.
I just want you to be in a good position to wind up and know that we can continue this at another time as well, without feeling like you need to rush through it.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just skip to a couple other things real quick. Brian, is there one with the auditor? On the email? Number 9. Well, real quick right there, go ahead and pick number 9. That right there, that's in our audit. That's an audit of the internal controls by the auditor. They mention that they make sure that we're following internal controls. They do not give an opinion on the internal controls. This, number 9, is, this is the letter of governance that comes to you guys after the audit. So this kind of talks about any sort of adjustments that the auditor needed to make during our audit. I kind of mentioned this, I think, when I covered the audit. There were some changes. For instance, we close our books after 90 days, and there's like a $1.2 million adjustment. Like, I thought you were to the penny, Lenny. What's this $1.2 million adjustment? This was the state TIF money that came in
Right.
after the 90 days, but during the audit period, and they figured, hey, this is a very material item. We want to accrue this back. So anything material is mentioned, and it is communicated to the city manager and to you guys, anything that's material that needs to be adjusted. And there's some other ones in there I won't go into. Also in your packet, I had that actuals. It's kind of to see, for you guys to see that format, if that's what you like. Line item, budget, amount used, variance, and then how much was left. Some other things that we could do, possibly going into the future, is obviously the quarterly. We used to do quarterly financials. The previous city manager would preferred to get like a revenue report from us from time to time. I think he shared that with you guys. And then expenses were just discussed about. So we never really went to a formal quarterly financials. I think some cities are moving to putting those onto the website. Meetings. There's things we don't necessarily have, like a budget committee, finance committee, audit committee. And do we need those things? That could be determined. Do we not need to have those things? I can always meet with you guys one-on-one in regards to those things. One last thing, number 11 on that, so I got some time for questions. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the prior finance directors for the city. Most of this came from what they had set up. Most of these, obviously before we had credit cards, I've had to add stuff as technology changed. But most of the culture here, and as I pass this on for Matt, who's hopefully the next generation here after me,
Come on, Matt,
since I'm
smile.
eligible to retire, most of this has been set by them and put in place. Like we take great pride when the auditors show up, having things prepared in a certain way, and how we do things and how things are covered. So I wanted to make sure I just mentioned Phil Shefferdini, Norma Tyree, Greg Engelman, and Debbie Vincent. So. With that, I want to leave some time for some questions, because I'm sure there's some.
Going
Awesome.
back to the
Thanks.
charge cards real quick, it's something that I know the answer to, but I don't know if the the public knows this, but we do not have charge cards. The board does not have charge cards.
No.
Right, but different cities do. I have seen that before, where I've gone out with people and they do have charge cards. So I do like that we have a limited amount of people that have charge cards on staff. I think that's important.
Yes, and another thing with the charge card, anytime anybody is issued one, the city manager decides what limit they get. So most of them, I think, are like 3,000.
And the board should not have charge cards.
No.
I agree with that.
I'll just put that right out there.
Do not need that.
Anyone else on the board?
I'll just, go ahead, George.
Well, just real quick, when every year when the auditors do their thing, do they pick one section or one account to go a deeper dive on?
Whatever each firm kind of has their own set of what triggers that. There's a materiality, section of that. So they might pick accounts that have this type of balance or have this much activity, and then they'll go in and they'll say, we want to pull a sample size of just these. Okay, this account has a large balance, but it's really only 2 transactions that are driving that, and you may want to see all of those 2 or whatever. So it's driven by their sample. They don't check every transaction. They come in and pull a sampling.
We don't know what they're going to look at, really.
No, but it is amazing how they seem to find that one check that you can't find or that has been misplaced. It's
Keeps you on your toes.
yeah, we eventually find it, but it is like, of course, it's like it's magic.
Well, that's the purpose of the audit. Go ahead, Ken.
You know, I just wanted to speak a little bit to what Commissioner Radwanski said. Do we learn from past? And that's good, Commissioner. I knew Ron Epling personally, and I also knew Bob Dew. I went to school with Bob. And I was very much, I think I even banked the Visitors and Convention Center Bureau. They were out 600,000, something like that. And she was doing ACH transfers. So speaking to that, that's been handled very well. Ron Epling was using the IPT. I mean, he was splitting checks, and the IPT, unbeknownst to many of us, was coming in haphazardly and had the opportunity to do that. And Bob Dew was creating vendors and creating payments. So he created a vendor that he paid himself, and then he'd subtract the vendor later. So he had the abilities. But it's nice to hear all of these things are being addressed, by us here. The other thing that's important is that the reconciliations are done, monthly, and I appreciate that as well. So I'm very happy to hear this report. So thanks.
Yep. I'll say I've been impressed with you and your staff. I did audits and investigations with the federal government for about 7 years of my career, and I dealt with a lot of finance departments and a lot of not so good people. But it's good to see that we are in good hands with To the Penny Lenny.
To the penny Lenny. All right, anyone in the public? This is your time. All right, well, I guess I'll end with a couple final comments myself. First of all, thank you for putting the time and the effort and get your team together to do such a comprehensive report. An hour goes quick, especially when there are all these details to talk through. Getting to the end of this, I think, is important, as we talk through the consultants. Having independent auditors that are required by law to come in, and actually changing the auditors every once in a while, when they bring in new systems as to how they do the audit. I know we've had the current auditor for a number of years, which also makes it more efficient, but they've also found over the years what they perceived as some level of deficiencies, and we make corrections. This is ongoing, continuous improvement, and you've led this team in doing and making those adjustments as needed. And proud of your work. Keep it up. It's not always going to be exactly to the penny. There may be a variance here and there, but we know that everything is accounted for and watched, and thanks for this report.
Thank you.
And we stand adjourned.
Mayor,
Oh, yeah.
can we do one thing? Tommy is 55 years old today.
Yesterday.
So, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mayor Gaduli. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Thanks for being here.